Investigations on Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, published by The New Yorker and The New York Times, and in their wake, a cascade of stories on harassment and abuse across different industries, from TV news to politics to music to major corporation, all based on the dogged work of reporters gaining the trust of their sources, doing the legwork to corroborate theirs, upending elections, provoking a national reckoning on sexual abuse and sexual harassment in public life. I'm joined by Erin Carmone, who broke the story on sexual harassment allegations against Charlie Rose, that led to his firing the next day. Rebecca Tracer has been covering the post-Weinstein reckoning.
I mean, I think that there's something that reporting can do here that other tools like the criminal justice system or HR are unable to do.
Right? For example, Garrison Keillor was fired preemptively, I believe, and we only have the sketchiest vision of what he did.
On it.
That's all we have.
That's all we have. Ryan Lizza lost his job at The New Yorker. NBC fired Matt Lauer in advance of the report on what Lauer had done. And we can see in those cases, some public radio host, Leonard Lopate, was taken out of the building. Right. I don't know that he's been fired, but without any public record of what the allegations against him are. And of course, when a company...
The fact that this reckoning has begun with people who are by and large recognizable, because obviously we've been talking about sexual harassment, we've been talking about sexual assault in different ways.
And all these people who are familiar to us, has then begun to do this next part, which is open the door to stories of people who are not familiar, so that yes, the earlier...
That, like, when you think about, you know, it starts with Harvey Weinstein, Ford factory, waitresses, everyone, that's the sort of next place this reporting's moving, but...
So, wolf whistling, where do we stand on that? Radhika, if somebody wolf whistles at you, what do you think?
I feel really uncomfortable. And depending on how severe it is, I can feel really threatened and quite scared.
The topic of banning it, though, I think that makes me feel really nervous, not only because the idea of having a fine to deal with this seems like the completely wrong way to go about enacting social change, but also it just seems completely impractical. How would you do that without, you know, having police on every street corner watching?
Sometimes I wish I was more confident and able to do that. But I just don't think the onus should always be on the victim to have to speak up. And I do disagree that it's still a rare occurrence. You know, a recent study from End Violence Against Women, they found that 18 to 24-year-olds, out of their 85%, have received unwanted sexual comments on the street.
Hey, come on, it's just a couple of us guys, just a couple of guys around here.
And 45 had received unwanted sexual touching. So it is still a huge problem. Yeah. And I just don't think that we should expect women to have to stand up for themselves and be the ones to end.
I'd be very sceptical about the kind of surveys and the data on this, because it often is, you know, playing into a hyping up of of the danger that women get put in, when actually I think we're in just quickly, I think we're in danger of painting a really patronising view of women here. Radhika has said that, okay, some women like it, but, you know, some women don't. We're inviting the police to get involved in something that some women might not like. That is really...
Now, how many of you guys think a woman is looking for Prince Charming? Wrong! They're looking for bastards like me!
Radhika has said that, okay, some women like it, but, you know, some women don't. We're inviting the police to get involved in something that some women might not like. That is really dangerous.
I think what we're doing here is sending a message, and this is the big reason why I do think it's important for authorities to get involved and not just sit by and let women sort it out.
But is there another way to do it, Radhika, other than criminalising these men?
First and foremost, you deny any wrongdoing, correct?
Absolutely. I have never groped, I have never coerced, I have never exposed myself inappropriately to anyone. In 30 years, over 6 different networks, and there's never been any allegation of that. I want to make sure that we don't lose all sense of nuance and proportionality in this conversation, because if we do, then people end up being guilty simply by accusation.
But you admit to having consensual sexual relationships with your subordinates. Do you understand how that could be viewed as an abuse of power?
Well, absolutely. There are some people who believe that there is no such thing as a consensual relationship in the workplace. I hear that point of view and I respect it. I don't know who you're going to hang out with or date or fall in love with, and indeed, there are millions of Americans watching this program right now who met their spouses at work.
But how can you be certain that these women didn't feel that they were going to lose their job?
Because I never gave any favoritism upward or downward. I never promoted anybody, demoted anybody because of that.
Anyone?
To me, they were prepared to close this investigation without talking to me. Only under the threat of lawsuit did they agree to sit down and talk to me. And when they did, they talked to me for 3 hours.
Important to you to know who your accusers are?
It's important to sit in a meeting and all the questions are vague and there's no specificity, no persons, no places, no times. It's hard to sit for 3 hours and talk without knowing what you're talking about. No complaints were ever filed, number one. And number two, this investigation did not include talking to anyone on my current staff. And the minute that 3-hour meeting was over, within minutes almost, within an hour and a half, I think, PBS acknowledged to us, sent a letter to my attorneys. 12 minutes thereafter, this story posted on Variety. Now, I don't know how you write a story, research a story, get quotes from unnamed sources, presumably at PBS, put links in the story, and do all that in 12 minutes. Something is awry here.
Anonymous accusations always lead to abuses. Why do media outlets allow it in cases of sexual harassment? News organizations are not courts. They shouldn't take a side when guilt and innocence are in dispute. It's too easy to get it wrong. Second, not everyone accused of a sex offense is guilty. I learned this the hard way a number of years ago when I was accused of felony rape by a woman I'd literally never even seen. I spent the next 2 months trying to stay out of jail. I couldn't tell my children because I knew they'd be ashamed. I couldn't tell my employer because I knew I'd be fired immediately. I spoke only to lawyers and I paid them a fortune. Of course, crushing the innocent may also be the point of the exercise, and we're seeing that. Last week, a feminist called Emily Lyndon announced on Twitter that she was, quote, not at all concerned about innocent men losing their jobs in the search for perpetrators of sexual harassment. Quote, if some innocent men's reputations have to take a hit in the process of undoing the patriarchy, that is a price I am absolutely willing to pay.
But what she's trying to say that it would be microscopic compared to what women have been through. You mentioned witch hunts. There are no warlock hunts. There were never any wizard hunts. I mean, women are the ones that are often persecuted.
Why wouldn't you be every bit as horrified that it's going on now or that it could potentially happen now? Why wouldn't you be horrified by what this woman wrote?
So much worse than what would happen to a man's reputation. Women's reputations are destroyed constantly on a daily basis.
So in other words, you're saying, like, I think what happened to women is wrong, so I'm going to do it to men because it feels good. Why should I take you seriously as a person if that's the case you're making?
Well, social injustice is not okay.
What do you mean? Look,
well, that's what she was saying.
Here's what she doesn't know. If you can present the stats, like actual social science on that,
right.
But here's what we know is that people are flawed. And most people tell the truth, but not everybody does. And that's why we have things like due process and a justice system that tries to determine objectively who is guilty and who is innocent and punishes only the first category. And she's suggesting, and a lot of other people like you are suggesting, just throw that out because everybody who makes an accusation is telling the truth when we know that's not true. Well, like, I don't want to live in the world you're describing. Do you really want to?
No. Let's have the wizard hunts. Let's have everyone burned at the stake, if anyone's going to burn at the stake. So I think that's the philosophy.
Wouldn't it be better to treat people as individuals and assess the claims against people on an individual basis?
Absolutely, but it's not happening. It's not happening for women. No, women are the minority in this country, and we still are fighting for our equal rights. So men are still in power. You are still in power. That group is not in power. So what I'm saying is that if that group were to be in power, it would probably be a better place because we all know that women are less violent than men. They commit less murders than men, and women are just not that way. So it would actually probably be a better world if women were in charge. So like a woman has felt over the centuries, like the Scarlet Letter, like Hester Prynne that had to wear the Scarlet Letter A. I would feel like a woman the way she's been treated over the centuries. Women have been accused for years.
But they haven't been accused anonymously, not in this country, because it's never been allowed until recently. It's never been allowed. And that would include the Puritan times, that would include the Hester Prynne era that you're referring to. People are not accused anonymously.
But says things may never be the same again for him and his family.
I don't know what's going on now in my life. What I do, nothing. Everybody see me Somebody believe.
The accusations made by this woman last week. Garada was handcuffed, arrested, and booked in a Bartlett jail after 23-year-old Angela Poindexter accused him of trying to rape her. Garada's family was able to prove he was set up by someone who had a grudge against him, and police were able to get Poindexter to admit she made it all up. And the couple says since the arrest, their business has suffered. Customers too afraid to come. Moved here from Egypt 11 years ago. He says it was always his dream to come to the U.S.
If they're really witches, why don't they use their powers to escape?
That sounds like witch talk to me, Lisa.